Hello, and welcome to Spokane County Spotlight. I'm your County Commissioner, Josh Kerns, and my guests today are Spokane Valley Councilwoman Laura Padden and City of Spokane Councilman Jonathan Bingle. Laura and Jonathan, welcome to the program today.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
Absolutely. To start our conversation off today, we're going to ask Laura, can you give us a little bit of some background about yourself, a little introduction to the audience?
Oh, well, sure. I was born in Spokane, was raised in the Spokane Valley, lived there for the rest of my life since I've been 2 years old. I'm the youngest of 6, and I got a degree from Washington State University in police science and administration, which I never used, and I went to work for Jacqueline Seed Company as their data processing manager. Got married, had 5 kids, stayed home. I was very fortunate to be able to stay home and raise them, help raise them. Went back to school when they were all in school out at Cheney and got another bachelor's degree in computer science and administration. So then I worked in the private sector for a number of years, about 6 years, and the last 15 have been at the community colleges of Spokane.
All right, well, thank you. Yeah. Jonathan, could you give an introduction to our audience today?
Yeah, so I'm born and raised in Spokane. I actually live about a block from my childhood home, the home that I grew up in. And so my wife and I, we own a couple businesses here in town. We have an events and entertainment business and then a contracting business. And my whole life, my background is we grew up in a ministerial home. My parents were pastors. We did a lot of missionary work growing up. And just recently decided that, I think I might be able to do some good in a different way. And so I decided to run for office, and here I am.
All right, which is a perfect segue to probably one of the most common questions all elected officials get is, why'd you decide to run for office? So Jonathan, why don't you lead off?
Yeah, like I said, being somebody who's born and raised in the Northeast, somebody who went to Rogers High School, we have this very we're kind of upset at the rest of the city all the time, and we feel like we're the kid brother, that we never get the respect that we deserve. I just saw some things happening in the city where, I wanted to step up and be able to represent, my childhood home in the best way that I could. And there were some issues that I thought I had some unique insight based on my business background. Housing is a big concern right now. Being a general contractor, I knew that I had some insight that maybe the city needed. And so for me, I just really was thinking that I could do some good for my community, because the Northeast has some really, really unique, beautiful things about it that I just don't think people understand if you haven't grown up there. And so I wanted to represent those well.
All right, Laura, what was it that made you take the leap and put your name on a ballot?
Yeah, well, it's pretty similar to what Jonathan just said. I lived all my life in the Valley, and I had been asked before to run, and I always turned them down. And then, in the last few years, I'm kind of looking around saying, there's some things I see that I'm concerned about. And, one of them was public safety. Housing was a big issue as well. And I'm going, I have some ideas, and I've been around the Valley for a long time, and so maybe I can help.
All right. So you both took the leap. Mm-hmm. You ran, you got elected. What is the priority? What's your top priority for your jurisdiction that you hope to focus on now that you've been elected?
Well, I'd say there's probably 2. And the first one is public safety, because there's been really growing violent crime, gangs moving out in the Valley. The state kind of did a number on law enforcement this last year and took away a lot of their non-lethal tools that they could use. And people are concerned, and so that would be the top area. And the second would be housing, and mostly because, we're in a housing crisis. It's full-blown, everybody knows, and it has tremendous impact not only on, on everybody. I mean, it exacerbates the homeless situation. It's detrimental for if you're trying to build businesses and have people move in and get jobs, and there's no place for them to live. That's a problem too. So we have them all living in Idaho and commuting back and forth, which is a problem for our roads too. So,
yeah, I think those are 2 issues that just about everybody in this community can see, and just such a huge amount of the community that's being impacted by both of those issues too. Jonathan, what are the top priorities you have that you'd like to address this year on the city council?
Yeah, well, I mean, very similar to Laura's, the councilwoman's, in the same way where we saw a really heavy defund the police push last year. I mean, that's a pretty prevailing idea in our state, and so one of the things I wanted to be able to do was to sort of stand in the gap and just resist that movement, because what we actually have in the city of Spokane, we're 100 officers short of where we should be for a city our size, and Washington State is 50th out of 50 when it comes to police per capita. And so getting some adequate funding to our police departments so that they're not overburdened, overworked, burnt out, but that we could get them some help and support was a really big deal for me, because I want to live in a city that I feel safe in. And, if we get rid of the police department, I don't feel like we're going to be a safe city. So that was a big one for me. And on top of public safety, homelessness in the city of Spokane is an absolutely massive issue. We tend to have services in the city of Spokane that aren't available on this side of the state except for in Spokane. And so we have a lot of homeless that come to the city of Spokane to receive services. The unfortunate byproduct of that is that there are a group that needs some severe help when it comes to mental health and addiction. So I wanted to be able to do that. And also there's an even smaller group in that just tend to cause some problems and some real damage. And I wanted to make sure that we treated them as equals, that we treat them in the same way, that if you're committing crimes, you're gonna have to pay for it. So.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Every year brings new. It brings change, brings opportunities, but it also brings new challenges. Laura, when we look at Spokane Valley, is there an emerging challenge? Is there an existing challenge? Or just what do you think that the biggest issue is that'll be facing Spokane Valley?
Oh, in some ways, one of our biggest challenges is the state of Washington and what the legislature does to us every year. And you can see what they did to, in housing. Washington is ranked the 8th lowest in homeownership, percentage-wise. Mm-hmm. And, homeownership gives you a stake in the community and a real interest in it, and the hope that you can make it better. But, if everybody's, and then if you don't have homes, the rentals go up and homelessness goes up, and it's just a big mess. So, if the state would sort of leave us alone and let us deal with our own issues, I think we'd do better. And of course, the COVID protocols, I think, is also, or the whole COVID thing is a big challenge to keep moving forward and keep, revenue up and keep making progress.
Mm-hmm. And I think that's one of the things that I think is overlooked a lot of time is the impact that the state level does have on local government. I mean, there's so many people that just think, oh, well, local government, they can do whatever they want. But the fact is that that's not the truth.
Right.
We still have to operate under the laws that are passed down, and unfortunately, many of those come in the forms of unfunded mandates that make things extremely difficult on local governments.
Yes.
So, Jonathan, what do you think is the biggest challenge that the city of Spokane will be facing in 2022? And is it a new challenge? Is it an existing challenge?
Yeah, I think the biggest challenge, aside from the two that we've sort of talked about, housing is a huge deal for the city of Spokane, because there is a portion of the homeless population that become homeless because there isn't affordable housing for them, and so that's going to be a challenge for us, finding places that we can build and establish, and finding developing partners that want to join with the city and help us fill that gap. But on top of that, housing is a big deal, because if there aren't opportunities for home ownership, if there isn't a housing supply available, then businesses that tend to be leaving bigger cities right now because they don't like bad policies, we can't legitimately look at a company that has 200 employees and say, hey, come plant your flag here, because look at all the housing that's available. I mean, housing for us is going to be a major issue, not only for the current population, but for the population that sees Spokane as a hidden gem, because it really is a hidden gem. So finding ways to overcome that hurdle is going to be tough for us this year.
Yeah. Okay. Yep. You both just came off of an intense campaign season. So sometimes that can have its ups, have its downs, you know. But
Yeah.
are there any interesting or funny stories from the campaign trail that you'd like to share with us? Jonathan, we'll start with you.
Yeah, so I was surprised at how comfortable people are answering their doors when they're not necessarily put together. One particular person in particular just wasn't put together at all, and I tried to get out of there as quickly as possible because they were clearly very busy, but for me that was the most shocking one where, oh, hey, how are you? Yes, no, I appreciate it, I'll talk to you later. So that was, for me, that was probably the most fun story I had.
Maybe it's just they really trusted you.
Maybe,
and,
you know, yeah, and I appreciate that level of trust, but maybe pull it back just a little bit, yeah.
Laura, any funny or interesting stories from the campaign trail?
Well, the funniest ones are, again, doorbelling,
Yeah.
because you run into so many people. And, you know, I ran into old babysitters that used to babysit for us, which was fun. The guy that used to deliver oil when we had an oil furnace, you know, answered the door and recognized us. But probably the funniest one was actually Councilwoman Pam Haley was out with me doorbelling, and we were, you know, kind of discussing things and then walking down the street, and we were headed towards this house, and a guy had been out jogging, and he was behind us, and he says, "Oh, don't bother to go there. We're Catholic. We're happily Catholic." And I'm going, "Oh, okay," you know, but he thought we were evangelizing. Missionaries.
Yes.
I'm going, "Well, we really want to talk to you about something else," but
I have a very similar story to that when I was out campaigning a few years back. I had knocked on a door and I could hear the people yell from inside, and they're, "Go away, we don't want to buy anything."
Yes.
And so I just okay,
right,
stuck
here
my
you go.
flyer in the door, I walked off, and about 15 minutes I got a call on my cell phone, and I picked it up, and it was that house, and they were apologizing, and they're like, "I'm so sorry, I thought you were a door-to-door salesman."
oh, that is funny.
Yes.
I had kind of a deflating one, doorbelling, and a little kid was at the door. I mean, didn't open the door, right? But he's yelling kind of through the door, and his mom's in a different room, and I can hear her. And she's saying, "Who's at the door?" And the kid's, and he's just a little kid. He says, "Oh, there's an old lady at the door." I go, "Okay, I'll just leave now."
Like they say, kids say the darndest
That's
things.
right, kids. Oh, man.
So both of you being lifelong residents of this community, what are some of your favorite things to do here? So Jonathan, we'll start with you.
Yes, okay. So I love to play sports. Sports are my jam. In particular, the one that I've played a lot for the last 10 years is softball. So growing up, you know, our church had a team that used to play at Franklin Park all the time, you know, and Franklin Park is pretty close. Recently, we've had some very good investments in, you know, like Merkel, the complex, and they're just absolutely gorgeous fields that are really well maintained. And so for me, I love to play sports. My wife is really into boating, and so we go boating quite a bit, you know, and that's one of the really awesome and unique things about Spokane is you go 15, 20 minutes in any direction, you're going to hit a lake, you're going to hit something where you're going to have fun. So, yeah, those are our pastimes.
All right. Yeah. Laura, what do you like to do in your free time?
Yeah, well, Mike and I like to bike ride, and so we do a bunch on the Centennial Trail, although depending on where you go and what time of day, it can be pretty crowded. But the really most beautiful place is the Trail of the Coeur d'Alenes. So we'll drive over there, and it's long, it's 71 miles long, and so you can pick, you know, areas where to get on and get off, and yeah, so that's what we really like.
Yeah, we're very blessed in this community to have so many recreational opportunities and very family-friendly opportunities to recreate as well. You know, we've all seen the restrictions that we've had to deal with the last couple of years around COVID-19. What do you envision the impacts of those being on your jurisdiction as we move in and through 2022? Laura?
Well, I think, first of all, it really impacts our relationship with our constituents. And you know, I'd like to go out and just talk to people and meet with them and have neighborhoods get together, and people are a little afraid to do that. I think it also impacts their participation coming down to City Hall and testifying or doing whatever. I mean, they can do it by Zoom, but a lot of people aren't comfortable with that. So we're not getting the input I think that we would in normal years. Surprisingly, it doesn't seem to have impacted our revenue. Revenue keeps increasing, even though a lot of small businesses have closed, but I guess some of the bigger ones, like the Amazons who have moved in and, they're doing well, and other businesses are. But, I really think it's important that, we communicate with our constituents, and I think COVID has, limited that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely it has. Jonathan?
Yeah, for us, we still aren't meeting in person, as a city council, and as a person who owns an events and entertainment business. When we transitioned from events in person to events online, I can just tell you pretty honestly, online events really stink. They're really terrible. Okay, in person is significantly better. And for me, I'm going to be pushing very hard to get us back in person, because human interaction, face-to-face, hand-to-hand, those kinds of interactions are incredibly important. And one of the things I hope the city doesn't do, but I know they're thinking about, is potentially requiring a vaccine verification to come to our city council meetings, which I think is one of the worst ideas I've heard in a long time. And so I really look forward to fighting that battle to make sure that the people can be heard in person without restrictions.
Yeah. As city council members, you're also assigned to different committees that you serve on, in addition to the council body that you serve on. What are some of the committees that you'll be serving on this year, Jonathan?
Yeah, so a couple that I'm really excited about, okay? So my son is going to be 2 in a few months, and so for him, he's super into trucks and, cars, and so he loves when the garbage truck drives by, and I'm going to be on, one of the waste boards, and so I get to go on a ride along with the waste. I get to go and tour some of the facilities, and I'm going to see if I can bring him along. He won't really understand, but I hope, I think that he'll have a lot of fun with it. Mm-hmm. So I'm pretty excited for that one. But then the other one, I grew up at the park. We lived kitty corner to a park, and in the summertime we would get kicked out in the morning. We'd eat breakfast there, we'd eat lunch there, and then when it was dark, we would come home. And I'm really excited that I get to be on the park board because, or the park committee, because in the next couple of years we're going to have our 50th anniversary of Expo 74, and so I'm really excited that I get to help in any way that I can to support that effort, because Expo 74 has delivered to us, the city of Spokane, our most iconic monuments. The pavilion, right, is our skyline. The clock tower that almost got demolished, but then didn't get demolished for Expo 74. And so I really look forward to highlighting some of the things that have made, Spokane unique, particularly when it comes to parks. Yeah.
All right. Laura, what committees will you be serving on?
Well, they haven't been announced yet.
Oh, okay.
But,
okay.
But I had said that I would like to serve on the Valley Chamber Committee, and also the Spokane Regional Law and Justice Commission.
Okay. Yeah. No. Two very important organizations in our community, and the Valley Chamber does a terrific job promoting economic development opportunities in the Valley, which actually is a great transition into our next question. Is what are some opportunities or things that you view as good economic development opportunities or economic development risks for our region?
Well, some of the risks, I'll start with that, is kind of this growing attitude people have of being willing not to work. Yeah. And, all these companies are looking for employees, and, it's really difficult to find them. And it's great for the employee market. I mean, they're jumping from, business to business, making more money, but it's a problem for economic development. Yeah. And, a benefit, I think, for economic growth is, well, for one thing, we've got Amazon coming in various places. They're out in the Valley, they're out in Airway Heights, and they seem interested in more, and that's a real plus. And I think some of the businesses have a real opportunity post-COVID or during COVID or just towards the end of COVID to sort of reimagine themselves. So like a lot of the box stores are reimagining themselves. Target's done a fantastic job of doing that, and they got big time into shipping like an Amazon type thing. So I think there's a lot of opportunities for businesses to try to find their niche and look a little different than they did before COVID.
Okay. Jonathan, What sort of opportunities and threats do you see in the economic development realm for our region?
Well, back to Laura's point here is that, when you talk about people being unwilling to, go into the workforce, I think they even call it the Great Resignation. And you see this push to, workers' rights and things, which I completely understand. But the trouble is that while wages have increased, because we don't have enough workers in the workforce, we have real supply chain crises, and what ends up happening is that then inflation hits, and we're dumping money into the economy when we don't need to be dumping in money into the economy. And while wages have increased, purchasing power has actually decreased significantly for families because everything at the grocery store is more expensive. And so I think we have some real challenges that are impressed upon us from the federal government that we'll have to navigate. But all that doom being said, in the city of Spokane, we do have some really incredible and exciting opportunities. Our PDAs are just going like gangbusters. Amazon obviously has a huge fulfillment center out there. There's several businesses that are going to be following and bringing in good, livable, working jobs. In the Northeast, we're ripe for investment in our own PDA if we can, get things up and going. And thankfully, there are some big investment projects that are in the work that I'm really excited for, and I'm really excited that in the Northeast we're very working class, and I look forward to helping to hopefully shepherd some industry that way.
Okay, and we talked about sort of the short-term goals, which I hope to both accomplish in 2022. Let's look sort of long-term. So 4 years from now, what do you hope you're able to look back and say that you and your city were able to accomplish in your term on the city council?
I would say I would hope that all the issues that I ran on, I was able to at least set the path towards correction. And so in the area of housing, helping to create more housing opportunities in the different areas of my district. But when it comes to like actual specific things in the Northeast, we have the highest, amount of unpaved roads, and so I would hope to set a path for the city to actually paving roads and to putting in sidewalks in my district because, if you are an electrician, and you want to build a $200,000 building so that you can get your business up and going, well, you can build in another area where the infrastructure is already in place, or you can choose the Northeast where not only do you have to build the building, but then you have to complete the street, which could be another $100,000, which actually is a major barrier to investment in my area. And so I think for us to see those investments coming in, I think we have to complete some of the streets that weren't done. And so for me, that's a big focus of mine.
Okay.
Yeah.
Laura, what do you hope in 4 years from now, what do you hope to say that you were able to accomplish in your term on the council?
Yeah, well, I hope I can look back and say the housing situation is a little better. It's not going to be solved in 4 years,
Right.
but maybe it's better. I hope we can say we brought more business in and made more jobs for people, a better life, and that bringing up roads is really good because we have a big issue, how we're funding, and so I hope that part of it is solved. Oh gosh, there was one other thing, but now it's escaped my mind, so anyway, but those are big issues, big things anyway.
Yes. Well, in our final few moments here, is there anything that you'd like to share with our guests?
Well, yeah, I would encourage people to pay attention to your local government. Most people sort of ignore it. I mean, they pay attention to the federal level, and the interest kind of wanes as it goes down the line. But your local government has a tremendous impact on your lives, on your everyday lives.
Yeah.
And, so pay attention, participate in that. Let your elected officials know, because the city council people can only be as good as the information they get.
Yeah.
And so please be active.
Jonathan, anything you'd like to share with our viewers as we wrap up today?
Yeah, just kind of, again, I mean, I'm 13 days on the job, so I'm just still very thankful to be here. And, we talk about real challenges that are there, and sometimes you can sort of feel this weight of like, oh my gosh, there's so much to be done. But remember, life is good. There's tons of reasons for hope. There are tons of reasons to be thankful for everything that you have in life. And so while there are big challenges in front of us, remember, life is good. You live in the United States of America, the greatest country that has ever been. So there are tons of reasons to be thankful for what we've got. So
absolutely,
yeah.
we live in an amazing country, and we live in an amazing community.
Yep.
Well, Laura and Jonathan, I'm afraid we're out of time. I'd like to thank my guests today, Spokane Valley City Councilwoman Laura Padden and City of Spokane Councilman Jonathan Bingle. I'm your County Commissioner, Josh Kerns, and thank you for joining us today on Spokane County Spotlight.